Hey, I'm your host, Mari Wagner, and you're listening to the Ever Be podcast, where faith meets lifestyle. I'm so excited you're here. Whether you're a new listener or a longtime follower, I know there's something here for you. Pull up a chair and listen in for insightful, real-life conversations and actionable steps on how to claim the full life God created you for. If you're a woman desiring to live a Christ-centered life in today's modern world, then this is for you. Welcome to Ever Be. Hey, Annika, welcome to Ever Be. I'm so excited to have you here.
Hi, friend. Thank you so much for having me on. I cannot wait.
You guys, today's guest is very exciting because she is amazing and she's also a dear friend of mine. And we were just talking about this before we hit record, just how much fun I have recording with friends, because the conversation seems to flow just so much more naturally. And it's just so much more of like an easygoing conversation. And it's fun. It's just like fun to chat with your friends about something you're super passionate about.
It's so true. And it's funny too, because we pretty much had this exact conversation in Bible study a few weeks ago. So now we're just recording it.
Yes. I feel like it's a conversation that just comes up all the time when we hang out. So I was like, okay, we just need to click record while we have the conversation so everybody can listen in. And I'm sure everybody's wondering, like, okay, what is this conversation you're talking about? So, Anika, why don't you just give a little introduction of who you are, what you do, so we can kick off this combo?
Yeah, let's do it. So, hi, everyone. My name is Annika. Mari and I met, it's been a couple months now through the
Yeah.
craziest phone call. We were on a call for
Yes.
Crunchy. We both do Crunchy. And
Mhm.
everyone was saying where they lived, and Mari was like, "Oh, I live in Colorado," and we
Yep.
ended up living in the same town, like 30 minutes away. So crazy, such a God thing how that all worked out. But I am a holistic nutritionist. My official title is functional nutritional therapy practitioner, and I have been practicing, seeing clients, doing the Instagram thing for 5 years now, which is crazy. So I've had the amazing blessing and opportunity to be able to work with hundreds of women as clients and then reach thousands of women through social media and the work that I do. So I've gotten to experience a lot of, unfortunately, kind of the imbalances that a lot of us women struggle with, but been able to help women through that from a totally Christ-based, God-based approach when it comes to food and health and nutrition. So I love what I do. I'm so passionate about it, and I'm so excited to talk about it.
Yeah. Can you quickly just share like a little bit of your story? Like, how did you even get into this?
Oh my gosh, this could be the whole podcast. So, man, let's see where to start. So, I really struggled with like body dysmorphia and an eating disorder pretty young. I'd say probably started around like high school is when it got pretty bad. And during this time, too, from the time of my first period, I had debilitating cramps. And with every cycle and every period, it got worse and worse and more painful. And so I kind of have this two things going on here. I have this eating disorder. I'm doing all this dieting and restricting and trying all these fad diets. I mean, if there's a diet out there, I have done it. Absolutely. So I was really harming my body with diets, meanwhile, dealing with this really aggressive endometriosis that I had no idea was happening. I just thought I had painful periods and that was just my life. So through having the endometriosis and then all the dieting I did, I mean, I was doing crazy dieting. A lot of it is holistic dieting too, which we can get into more.
Yeah.
But I mean, I was just destroying my body with things like keto and eating way too many cruciferous vegetables, low carb diets for so long. And what I didn't realize is that I was kind of creating this war in my body between the restriction and deprivation I was doing through limiting so many foods and
Yeah.
then all the bad. I thought they were good at the time, but the foods that I was eating in such high quantities that were really anti-metabolism. And so I was just creating this war internally of these foods versus my endo, and I just ended up getting so sick. I ended up
I'm
gaining a
here.
lot of weight. I dealt with really bad hair loss, chronic acne was like the worst thing that I dealt with by far. Menstrual cycle issues, like I said, the terrible endometriosis, just pretty much you name it, I've had the issue. So I just got extremely sick and it actually had this kind of rock bottom moment or my brother, who's younger than me, was like, you are doing such extreme stuff and you're being so crazy. Like, what if you did the opposite of all of this? What if that's what you needed to do to heal? And at that time, I was not ready to hear that. And I was like, that's ridiculous. I just need to do what I'm doing and do it harder. And so it took me a couple of years. And then finally, I found the nutrition philosophy that I teach now. And it is the opposite, the complete opposite of everything I was doing. And that is exactly what I needed to do in order to heal.
Wow. Well, I'm so excited to get into it. What's a bummer, and I've had this conversation with several people, is like, I feel like the people who are like experts in this field and doing this in like a professional way, like you, sadly got there because of some
Yes.
sort of chronic illness that they experienced, or some sort of hormonal imbalance or thyroid problem or whatever that they experienced that they couldn't find help with, that then they had to become an
Yes.
expert in it and like do all the research
Yes.
themselves. So
So true.
crazy that that's kind of like the place where we're at, and that so many people struggle with these different things. But let's just dive in.
Absolutely.
First of all, let's start like easy, baby steps. Can you just break down, this is a question I have, like, what is the difference between a holistic nutritionist and just a regular nutritionist? And like you mentioned that you have a specific approach that you
Mm-hmm.
take to nutrition. Just can you just break all that down?
Yes, definitely. So it's kind of hard because there's people in both camps all across the board. So traditionally, or it should be, that holistic nutritionists look at the body as a whole and treat and help support all of your body's functions. And we should know as holistic nutritionists that the body doesn't function as separate parts, it functions as a whole and it works together. However, unfortunately, a lot of holistic nutrition and even like a lot of functional medicine doctors and naturopaths and stuff, they still are really approaching the body with this super medicalized approach. So you'll go there and you'll say, "Hey, I'm not feeling well." And they'll go, "Okay, great. Here's this list of 10 supplements. It's going to cost you $500 a month. Good luck. We'll see you next month." And that is not my approach at all. So there is still a lot of that in the holistic space, which is why I actually got so sick from being in the holistic space.
Mm.
So there's a lot to unpack there. But then when you're talking more conventional, if you went to a university and got a degree as a dietitian or a nutritionist,
Yeah.
that kind of thing, so those programs are kind of funded by big food. So those are the people that you're going to see on the internet telling you that there is absolutely nothing wrong with eating Captain Crunch for breakfast, even though it has dyes and seed oils, because it has vitamins in it, even though those are synthetic fortified vitamins. That's a whole other conversation we could have.
Yeah.
So their whole programs are legitimately funded by big food. So they're the people telling you to like drink Gatorade and eat the cereal for breakfast and eat the fortified grains and all of that kind of stuff, which could not be more opposite. Now, again, there's so much nuance. There's so many dietitians that have woken up to all of this, have done amazing work in the holistic space, and do not follow that at all. So it's just kind of all across the board. And I have spent time in all of the camps. So, like I mentioned earlier, I was doing I was doing paleo, keto, plant-based, all the things that were really trendy in the holistic alternative wellness space. And I was just getting sicker and sicker and sicker.
Right.
And so it finally took me finding what has kind of been called like the pro-metabolic nutrition space. And that is where I landed. And that is what I was talking about earlier of having when I did the opposite of everything I was doing before, that is what pro-metabolic nutrition is. But to me, if you just really break it down and look at what it does and what we're eating and the foods we suggest, it's truly just getting back to the way God designed us to eat and live. So when I say pro-metabolic, for those who aren't familiar with it, the
Mhm.
biggest thing is it is a food first, supplement last approach. So I am such an advocate for food first. Supplements are truly should just be supplements. I think we've kind of gotten to this place where we rely on them, like we rely on prenatals, we rely on multivitamins. I never recommend that. I will never be the practitioner sending my clients out the door with $500 a month worth of supplements ever. So, major food first focus. And it's always a first focus on your metabolism and thyroid. Everything else stems from your metabolism and thyroid function. So, things like hormone imbalance, weight gain, acne, those things are never the root issue and should never be treated directly. So I remember when I walked into my functional medicine doctor's office to talk about my endometriosis and my estrogen dominant symptoms. She's like, that's the root cause of your problems, your hormone imbalance. And that is never the root cause. We need to take it a step further and go, well, why are your hormones imbalanced?
Right. Like the
That's
heart
the root
is a
cause.
symptom of the root
It's a
cause.
symptom of the root cause, yes.
Yeah.
But in so much, even alternative medicine, they'll tell you that's the root, and they'll treat that with supplements and all these things and like diet restrictions and stuff. And that is never the answer. The answer is always to focus on the thyroid and focus on the metabolism. And once you heal those two things, everything else will just fall into place. Like I didn't have to try to heal my acne. I didn't have to try to lose weight. I lost weight and my skin improved when I healed my body, if that makes sense.
Beautiful.
So
Yeah.
that's the approach I take. And honestly, in my practice, we treat everyone the same because everyone has the same cells and needs the same things. So this kind of idea of some nutritionists will be like, oh, some people just do really well on a keto diet and some people do really well on a vegan diet. I could not disagree more. We are a species, we are humans. You have never heard a wildlife biologist being like, this lion is a vegan and it just works for him. Like that's not how it works, and it's the same for humans. So while
Interesting.
bioindividuality absolutely exists and there's going to be different things that we need to support our bodies due to our different imbalances, what we need on a foundational nutrition level for humans is going to be the same across the board because our cells need the same things.
And honestly, like that just like makes sense to me. And I think one thing that I have been loving learning about this like pro-metabolic eating space is that so much of it just makes sense. Like it just kind of like sits in my soul in a very peaceful way. And it's just like,
Yes.
yeah, this just makes sense. Like that just feels like how it should be. Whereas like when I've heard other eating, approaches and diets and stuff like that, I've kind of just been like, really though? Like that doesn't seem like easy at all. That seems like so
Yes.
unnatural. And so I'm excited to continue talking about this. Tell us like what specifically makes it the pro-metabolic eating approach? Why does this kind of like nutrients dense diet, like what is it made out of? Like how do you eat that way?
Totally. Yes. Yes. Such a great question. So we kind of have my business partner and I have kind of created these things that we call like the foundations of pro metabolic eating, which is pretty general across the board. So my pillars of things that I am so passionate about when it comes to food is number one, first and foremost, food quality and organic matters. So I do not think we are putting a big enough emphasis on the quality of the food we are eating. I mean, all of it is so important, but specifically when it comes to animal products, and this is an animal product heavy diet. It's not carnivore by any means, but it is an animal product heavy diet. And when we are eating these real whole foods, they have to be really high quality. It's not the same to be eating conventionally grown GMO grapes sprayed with pesticides and glyphosate and all these chemicals versus organically grown grapes. And there's a statistic that says you can literally reduce the amount of toxins in your body by just eating organic for 1 week by, I think it's 60 to 70%. So this makes a
Yeah.
huge, huge difference. Yes, and we can honestly get into, people are kind of can be turned off by the cost and whatnot at first.
Yeah.
You can eat this way for pretty much the same cost if you are intentional about it. And I'm so passionate about that. But
The other thing one thing my dad said growing up, because my parents are like kind of, I call them like a little bit of like a health nut in a way, just
I
like they
love
just
it.
like, cared about these things. I feel like before it became trendy.
Which
Um,
I think we should point out, this is so interesting because they came from a different country. And
True.
so many countries, we
Yes.
are the only country that has no culture and doesn't recognize how important that is. Your parents just innately knew that because they were so much closer to their food process and they understood that.
Mhm.
So I think that's
So
huge to
true.
point out. Yeah.
That's so true. Yeah, my family's from Colombia, in case you didn't know that. But he always said, like, sure, organic might be a little more expensive, but in the end, like, you're either paying for high quality food or you're paying for medical bills down the road. And he's like, which
Yes.
one do you want to pay
Yes.
for? And I'm like, okay, got it. And like right off the bat, like since
Yes.
I left my house, when I was 18, went to college, like people would always like ask, like, oh my gosh, you buy all organic, but like like I've always bought all organic just because that's always been
Amazing.
instilled in me. It's like, why would you not buy the best quality food? It's so different than just buying like, you know, like Marshall's like sweater versus like 100% cashmere. Like it's not like, oh, I'm just
Yes.
choosing to buy better quality clothes or better quality furniture. It's like this is actually going in my body, fueling my body. My body is what upholds me for my entire life. Like it's
Yes.
what fuels your health. So to me, it's always made so much sense. Like, why would you not buy the best quality food for your body? So I love
I
hearing you say
could
that.
not
And
love that more. And I think this is where it gets very biblical for me because it is a command in the Bible to treat your body as a temple of the Holy Spirit. And we only apply that to sexual immorality, which of course that's
yeah,
huge, extremely important. But this is our temple. This is our physical temple. So if we're disrespecting that and putting bad food into it, that doesn't make sense to me. This is what God has commanded us to do is to take care of ourselves, take care of our bodies. So
yeah,
I think it's
absolutely.
biblical, very biblical. But
Yeah.
yes, I love that perspective. So the next one, which is kind of on the same theme of what we just talked about, is prioritizing, again, I emphasize high quality animal protein. Because animal protein, whether that's from eggs, bone broth, meat, dairy, whatever it is, it also has to be high quality. I
Mm,
cannot emphasize that enough. Again, just with what we were talking about before, if you're eating low quality meat that has been fed an improper diet and lived an improper lifestyle, it fundamentally changes the quality of that meat or that animal product. So, it was probably like 2017, 2018 when the paleo craze was just raging. Everyone was like, dairy is it causes acne and it's hormonal and it's estrogenic and all this stuff. So I just quit dairy for no reason. I was like, oh,
and
okay, it's bad for me. I'm just going to stop eating it without understanding the nuance of quality when it comes to animal products. So, yes, animal dairy from the store, I am not kidding you. I would drink coconut milk before I would drink low quality dairy from like a conventional grocery store. It is filled with hormones. I'm a huge advocate for the welfare and treatment of animals. It comes from abused animals that live in extremely unhealthy environments, which makes their products unhealthy. So, consuming that versus raw milk or even high quality, low temperature pasteurized milk from a dairy that sources from cows that are grass fed and pasture raised, it's a completely different product. So, again, all of those are so important. I'm a huge advocate for dairy, meat, all the things, as long as they're high quality. So, that's number two. Women
I
are,
have a question.
yeah,
Dairy question.
yeah, yeah.
So I have been trying to figure out like which dairy is best for me to buy. And the options I have like kind of been going back and forth on is either 100% grass-fed organic milk from the store,
Mm-hmm.
or there's like a local dairy that delivers, but I'm pretty sure it's not grass fed. I've looked into it and I called them and I don't think it's grass fed, but it's like a local dairy farm. And so I'm like, is it better because it's local, and like the food like the what's it called? The chain to get from like the farm to my table is
Supply
like
chain is shorter.
the
Yeah.
supply chain is
Mm-hmm.
shorter. Or is like this like 100% grass-fed organic milk from the store better?
That would be my opinion. I would choose that. So
Okay.
I think I know the dairy that you're talking about since we're in the same area and a lot of my friends get it. And
Yes.
it's probably better. I think it creates the illusion of better because it's delivered to your door and it's like fresh milk delivered to your door. But what does that mean? Like you just pointed out, it's if it's grain fed, if they're kept in a confinement, absolutely not. I am going to the store. And if someone wants any brand recommendations, Kelowna Supernatural is one I think that you can get in
Yeah.
all the states now that I love. They are the most wonderful people. They have low temperature pasteurized, non homogenized, mean that it's not blended together. So there's actually a separation of cream and
Yes.
the milk at the
We've got
bottom.
that
And
one.
love it. Love it. Their cows are grass fed. They are wonderful people. I actually think they're Amish. So anyway, wonderful. There's great things that you can find in the store. When I first said store bought milk, I meant like the Kroger brand
Yeah.
2% that's basically water. And if you were to see, and this is where I mean, we're so separated from our food that this is what is allowing this to happen. But if you were to see the environment that dairy cows and animals, livestock are experience in their life. I mean, I think most people wouldn't be able to drink it, but because we don't see it, it's just like out of sight, out of mind, right? And so then we're drinking these low quality
Great.
products without even paying attention to it. I mean, I did this for years. I'm not throwing stones or pointing fingers. This was my life. I grew up on 2% milk from Safeway, you know? So, um anyway,
Same.
that is so important. And women are chronically under eating protein. I will just scream this from the rooftops. Women are chronically under eating protein. I would say the average woman who's not paying attention is probably eating 40 to 50 grams a day. That is less than half of what we need.
Yeah.
So I actually recommend 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. Um, so if you put that into perspective, most of us are 100 pounds. At least, at least. And I doubt most women, unless you're being intentional, are eating 100 grams of protein. So increasing protein with high quality animal protein products, super huge. That's another one of the foundations that we have. The next one is stop drinking mineral depleted water and especially tap water. This is another one that the wellness industry made so popular with those cute gallon jugs of the encouragements of how much you should drink and keep going, you got this. And when I see that, oh man, there's so many problems with that. So first of all, most of us are filling those with tap water. Tap water is the most toxic thing that we are putting in and on our bodies every day at large quantities. Tap water is filled with a list of chemicals so long we would be here all day if we went through all of them, but heavy metals, pesticides, pharmaceuticals. They found actual hormones in tap water, mostly estrogen.
Gosh.
Shocker, right? And we wonder why estrogen dominance is an epidemic at this point. And all sorts of, I mean, one that I found out about more recently is a chemical called atrazine. And atrazine it's used in conventional agriculture. It's an herbicide or a pesticide, and it's so estrogenic. They did an experiment. They put frogs in a tank of water and they exposed them to atrazine at a level deemed safe and acceptable from the EPA. And all of the frogs were males. They all turned female, and some of them produced fertile eggs. So it is that estrogenic, and we are drinking this every day, especially people like Mari and I. We live in a very agricultural area.
Yeah.
There's a lot of farming and a lot of ranching around us. And so it's in our water, I would bet, at a higher level than it is if you weren't living in an area like us, but it's still rampant in tap water. So that's when I learned about recently that I was just like, oh, this is bad. So the tap water has to go. It is one of the biggest things to me. And then just drinking plain water. So when you are drinking plain water, you are flushing minerals out of your body, which is why I have such a problem with the gallon drinking challenge thing, because when we do that, we're drinking clear pee. And I, for years, thought clear pee, or we're not drinking clear pee, we're peeing clear pee.
We are not drinking
We are
pee.
not drinking pee,
Clarify
okay,
that.
guys?
That's not what we're at.
No, that is not. Please don't ever do that.
Oh, no.
But you're peeing clear pee, and forever I thought that was like the gold standard of health. I was like, my pee is clear. I'm doing so good. I've killed it for today. No, that actually means you've successfully flushed your system of minerals. So we're chugging this mineral depleted tap water, huge detriment to our health. I recommend adding a little pinch of salt to your water, or drinking water with lemon, or drinking herbal teas, drinking milk, drinking juices with meals, that kind of thing. So, so important, so that you're actually replenishing your minerals instead of just cleansing your body of minerals every single day. And that brings us to another one. I know we're going to dive into this later. So minerals matter. Minerals matter so much. We'll circle back to this because I know you had some questions on that.
Yes.
Limiting industrial seed oils. Another one that is just huge. I'm so passionate about, and I know you had a question on this later, so we can circle back to that one. And then gut health. If your gut is not functioning properly, your entire body system will be off. So again, that's why acne is not a root problem. It's not like, oh, I have terrible acne, I need to go put all this benzoyl peroxide and Proactive and all these harsh treatments on it. It's what's causing the acne. So many times it's gut health, it's thyroid health, that kind of thing. But our gut health determines the health of our entire body. So focusing on gut health is huge, and eating foods that nourish and support the gut that are easy to digest, instead of, like I said, what I was doing, it was eating 6 servings of cruciferous vegetables a day because I thought that that's what I had to do to eliminate estrogen, because that's what my naturopath told me. Meanwhile, it's super anti-thyroid. So the anti-nutrients in those vegetables directly attack your thyroid. And then they were sitting in my gut fermenting, creating chronic constipation, gas, bloating, all of that stuff. So eating proper gut nourishing foods, the things we've talked about, mineral rich foods, animal products, all of those things are so much easier to digest. And then last foundation I have is blood sugar regulation. And I know a lot of times people are like, blood sugar regulation, isn't that like for diabetics or something? No. This is something so important that we're completely ignoring. I see women all the time eating naked carbs, which are carbs without a protein or fat. So drinking a whole juice by itself, or eating an apple or a piece of fruit even by itself, that is a naked carb, and that will cause a spike and a crash in your blood sugar. So blood sugar balance means you eat protein, carb, and fat at every meal and snack, and eating that little package, getting all those macronutrients in, will ensure balanced blood sugar, so you're not having that like shakiness, hangriness, headaches between meals, all of those negative symptoms of, I mean, truly, we call it being hangry, and it's just, that is blood sugar dysregulation, is being hangry. So I know that was like a lot, but those are the main things that I'm very passionate about, and I believe that if you follow those, and again, we'll get more into some of these, you will see your health improve so much.
That is so good. Give us a few examples, like when you say, like, because I think this is relatable, like snacking. When people are hungry in the middle of the day, it's so easy to just grab, a fruit or a piece of toast or whatever. Like, what are just a quick few examples of snacks that have protein, fat, and carb?
Yeah, I love that question. And I mean, we've done this forever, right? So I don't want anyone to feel bad for thinking like you're eating an apple, you're like, oh, that's awesome, I'm being so
Yeah.
healthy. So instead of eating just an apple, for example, I would eat an apple and a cheese stick, or an apple and a cheese stick and a beef stick. Instead of just toast, like you said, I would have toast with cottage cheese on the side or on top, or a yogurt with a piece of toast, that kind of thing. So
Awesome. Yeah, those are great. Okay, let's talk about any misconceptions you've seen in the wellness world when it comes to nutrition.
oh man, where do we
Open
begin?
floodgates.
Open the floodgates, brace yourselves, everyone. So if I'm being honest, I would say almost everything out there. I mean, there's not a single diet that I would agree with by any means. I mean, so keto and low carb diets, these are destroying our thyroid and our metabolism. And I think so many women have kind of been like targeted by this marketing. And when I started dieting in high school, the first thing I did was limit and eliminate carbs, because I thought carbs were what made us fat, and that it could not be further from the truth. And so, that one kills me. I did the keto diet forever. It absolutely destroyed my metabolism and my thyroid, and I truly believe I'm still recovering from that. So that one drives me nuts. Intermittent fasting is something we could do an entire podcast episode on. I could just go off about intermittent fasting. And every time I do on social media, people do not like to hear that. And they're like, well, you probably haven't read the book Fast Like a Girl. I have. And I fully disagree with everything in that book. Intermittent fasting destroys our metabolisms, our thyroid, our reproductive hormones, our hunger hormones and signals. I mean, it truly is so, so harmful to our bodies and takes a very long time to recover from. I mean, truly anything, low fat, low carb, anytime we remove a macronutrient food group or restrict ourselves from food. And this is what drives me so nuts about diet culture, is women have always been told, in order to like be beautiful and have this body that we want, we have to be less and do less. So less carbs, less sugar, less dairy, less gluten, less calories. It's always like, what are we taking away? And I cannot stand that. Women's bodies thrive in abundance. And that is what's so important, is like, what foods can we add? What foods can we include to support our bodies and bring back vitality to our systems from the bottom up, So
again, that makes so much sense to me. It's like, what nutrient dense foods can we add so that we have more life within us, so that we have more nutrients in our body, versus like, what all can we eliminate from our diet so that we are less, so that
So we're skinnier,
it
or
just
like,
makes me
no.
feel like it's just like closer to death, you know, how much smaller and frailer and less can we eat? I'm like,
Yes.
I feel like that's just not what God made us to be. Like, God didn't put us in the garden and said, don't eat everything, you know? He just said, like, don't eat the one tree, and that's got its own moral purpose for that, you know? But he was enjoy all that I've given you. Like,
Yes.
wow.
And I could not agree more. And what kills me about that is so many of these diets, like keto, low carb, low fat, we're literally, when we deprive ourselves of these foods, we are depriving ourselves of nutrients that are critical for our body's functions.
Yes.
So when I was on keto and my low carb dieting, I wouldn't touch fruit. Fruit is one of the most nutrient dense, mineral rich, delicious, wonderful, God-given like desserts ever. And I wouldn't touch it because it had sugar in it, you know? So it's just, it's crazy what we've done and how far we've come from just understanding what God had in store for us. That's why I'm like, my tree in the Garden of Eden is seed oils. I'm like, don't touch those. Everything else that's high quality should be a part of our diet, which is why I'm not anti-sugar, anti-dessert, or anything like that either.
Yeah. I think one thing too, like as I'm reflecting on this, is a lot of the reason why people feel like, and why women especially feel like they have to go towards these trends or avoid foods is probably, especially in America, just because the way our food is made. And so, like, yeah, if what is available to us is foods that are like covered in seed oils and dyes and processed foods and refined sugar and like all this kind of stuff, like if that's what's available to us, then I see why people are so big on avoiding, you know what I mean? But it's just about relearning what real nutrition is and what like whole foods actually can do for us. You know, like I shop at Trader Joe's, organic, and mostly because it's a small grocery store and it's cheaper. People think I shop at Trader Joe's because of all the like cute little like packages that they have, you know, like they have like seasonal foods and seasonal like cookies and flavors and everything. I'm like, yeah, those are cute ones, you know, fun to get once in a while. But I'm like, literally like, oh, where was I going with this? Hold on. It's on the tip of my tongue. Oh, I'm like, literally, I just shop there for whole foods, like for my produce and my meat. Like that's what I cook with. Like we don't need a bunch of like boxed, packaged, canned stuff in our pantries. You literally just need fruits, vegetables, meat, and dairy. You know what I mean? So can you just talk to us a little bit about like sugar, processed oil, additives, you know, how does this affect our metabolic health? And like we're surrounded by these in restaurants, at the grocery store, like so much of the food around us is filled with these things. Like why should we be avoiding them? How can we make better options?
Yes, such
So
great questions. So I think so. The first one, sugar. So this one is one that we need. I'm always really careful with because this is such a nuanced topic. So a lot of times I'll say to people, oh, the seed oils are causing this. And they'll be like, and the sugar. And I'm like, yes, but we have to talk about the nuance because it kills me when people say sugar is bad as a blanket statement, which is that holistic or not alternative nutrition, like that whole thing, which again, another thing, don't eat sugar, right? Sugar has been demonized for so long. And it's hard because our bodies need sugar. Like we actually need sugar to survive and thrive. Our livers need sugar in order to operate. But this is where the topic of quality, quantity, and timing comes into play. So again, with sugar, quality, number one, most important. Organic and unprocessed sugars like high quality cane sugar, maple syrup, honey, coconut sugar, all of those things are actually great and have a place in a diet. Fruit sugar, fruits, all that stuff. Quantity matters a lot too, because of course, too much of any good thing is a bad thing, and it's very easy to overdo sugar. And again, with the timing thing, we just don't want to eat naked carbs. We don't want to eat sugar alone because that's what causes the blood sugar spikes and crashes. So I first and foremost just want to say sugar, we need it. It's important. I actually I lost weight rapidly when I started eating sugar again because my body needed it so bad. I didn't go hog wild. I didn't binge on sugar. I didn't like eat brownies for every meal, but sugar in the diet and the correct amounts and quality and quantity and timing and all of that is so important for us. So I first of all want to clear that up. However, the processed sugars and the stuff we're getting in like our Starbucks drinks or in processed foods or energy drinks or any of that stuff is terrible. So much of the quote sugar that we're eating these days is just high fructose corn syrup. I mean, it's
Yeah.
everywhere. And I was at Costco the other day and they were selling Sunny D and I was like, "Oh my gosh, Sunny D, I haven't had this in forever. What's in here?" High fructose corn syrup. So this is what we're feeding our kids. This is what's
Well,
in kids' drinks and kids' snacks and kids' beverages and Lunchables and fruit, fruit by the foot, or all those snacks we ate growing up, you know? So it's that stuff is everywhere. That stuff is garbage. So it's really, again, quality and how much you're having. But any sugar that you're going to get in processed foods is going to either be too much or the incorrect form of sugar. Then we have seed oils. Truly, I fully believe they are one of the most toxic things that we're putting into our bodies. And they are absolutely actually can be directly tied to the obesity epidemic. It's because they're toxic to the thyroid. And our thyroid is what determines the health of our metabolism and helps with weight management and maintenance and all of that stuff. There is an actual graph where you can see where seed oils were introduced and obesity. And it's just, they're perfectly in line with each other. Seed oils, and to your point earlier, which was so good about other countries aren't having these problems like we are because they're not consuming these industrial seed oils in all of their products. Like if you go to the store here, if you were to go to, I don't know, Safeway or whatever and get a baguette, it's going to be 50 ingredients long. There's going to be seed oils in it. There's going to be fortified vitamins and things like that. It's also not organic. If you were to go to France and just pop into a bakery and get a baguette, it would probably be about 4 or 5 ingredients. They would use butter or olive oil or something like that. They don't use the seed oils, they don't fortify their grains, and they don't use nearly the amount of pesticides and herbicides and things like that on their products. So you can eat the same food and get a totally different experience, which is why quality and ingredients matter so much. It's never the food itself. So I will never say bread is bad. In fact, that'd be crazy because Jesus ate a lot of bread. It's the type of ingredients and the way that the bread is being made that makes a food bad. So
mhm.
anyway, these oils are super inflammatory. Consumption of these oils leads to an increase in free radicals in the body. They are very
What
estrogenic.
does that mean? Let's break that down for like our
Yes.
beginner audience. I want to know what seed oils, like what are the names that we can look for on an ingredient
Yes.
label to avoid? And what does that mean? That it's, what did you say? Free radicals in the
Yes.
body.
We'll go back through that. Okay, great. Sorry, great point. Thanks for bringing me back down. Okay, so seed oils. When you are looking at a label and you see canola oil,
Mm.
cottonseed oil, soybean oil, if you grew up in the night or like you were born in the 90s, your mom probably had that like Crisco vegetable oil. That's just straight soybean oil. It's so annoying. They call it vegetable oil. Just call it soybean oil, what it is. Corn oil, peanut oil, even sunflower oil. And that one's sneaky because that's in a lot of I mean, so many products, even at natural grocery stores. It's Trader Joe's has a bunch of sunflower oil, natural grocers. I mean, everywhere does. This one people
Sprouts.
haven't sprouts like people haven't really picked up on the fact that that's a bad one. But what I
Yeah,
challenge you guys to do, and I don't know if you ever do, you link show notes for your podcasts?
I do. We can link
Okay.
everything.
I will send you a video of it's a 5-minute video on how canola oil is made because
Ugh.
it's that long of an industrial process. It is gray. It is gray. They bleach it to get it to look like,
Clear.
yeah. Yep.
Gross.
So,
So better alternatives would be like avocado oil and coconut
butter,
oil,
butter, tallow, any of those types of oils. Yes, so much better. And again, you can get these things at places like Costco and they're not much more expensive. And they're so,
Mhm.
like you said, so worth it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so great question. And they are in the problem with our society is they are everywhere and they're in everything. So if you go to a restaurant, you're going to be getting food cooked in seed oils, which is such a bummer because even higher quality restaurants that maybe have like grass-fed beef, most of the time they cook it in seed oils. It's crazy. So there is an app, you can link this in the show notes too. It's called Seed Oil Scout, and it can help you find restaurants in your area that are either seed oil friendly. So you can go in and say, hey, I don't want you to cook this in canola oil. Can you cook it in butter? And they will, or they just don't even have seed oils on premise. And there's a few where we live that are awesome. So you can probably find some in your area, but I'll send that to you so you can link that in the show notes for everyone.
Yeah. Okay. And then you're going to explain the free radicals, what the seed oils do. Like, why are they so bad?
Yes. So to keep it less sciencey, let's just say that they're very inflammatory in the body. That's why we're seeing this really huge epidemic, essentially, with obesity, with inflammation. I mean, so many people, I think, of course, excess weight is a problem, but they're also just puffy, just really inflamed. That is a problem I dealt with constantly when I was eating a lot of seed oils, because I was doing like sunflower seed oil for the longest time, and so I just had puffiness and inflammation in my body. So they're inflammatory. They do become toxic when they're exposed to heat, which is very important because our human body is 98.6 degrees.
Yeah.
So they can actually become rancid just by us eating them, even if we haven't cooked with them.
Mm-hmm.
And they also increase estrogen in the body. And like we've talked about with the tap water, and in a world where so many women suffer from estrogen dominance, the last thing we need is more estrogen. So if you think about a woman living kind of the conventional American life, eating the standard American diet, and she's drinking tap water and eating all these products with seed oils, it's no wonder why men or women and men, huge emphasis on men, are dealing with estrogen dominance issues because it affects them just as much as it affects us.
Absolutely. Okay, bring us back to minerals. I know that this is something that's really big in the holistic nutrition space and something I've been like learning more about recently. Tell us why these are so important and what minerals do for our body and how can we make sure we're getting more of these?
Yes. I love this question because this is one of the things I feel like nobody is talking about, and we need to be talking about it. And to be honest, this is no one's fault. I didn't even come away from my holistic nutrition program understanding how important minerals and vitamins were. We went through it, we learned about it, but it wasn't like this is everything, and it is everything. So that's kind of my message, like minerals and vitamins and the quality of what we're getting from our food is absolutely everything. So if we really think about it, why do we eat food? Is it to feel full? Is it to enjoy ourselves? Like, why do we eat? While both of those things are true, we should actually be eating for the nutrient density of that food. So that's why the quality and the ingredients and like the actual food that you're eating is so important. You're not just eating to satisfy this need that you have every few hours. You're eating to build up your body and to create your cells from nourishing foods, or you should be. We should be, right? But again, we were never, no one ever told us this. No one ever talked about this. So the reason why minerals are so important is because they are the building blocks of life, fertility, and health. And to get a tiny bit scientific for a second, they're basically just the elements in foods that our body needs to develop and function normally. We need minerals in order to turn the food that we eat into energy. We need minerals in order to complete a variety of metabolic processes. So, for example, we need potassium for thyroid function. No one is getting enough potassium. The only thing anyone knows about potassium is that if you eat a banana, there's potassium in there.
Yes.
But, like, that is a fraction of the potassium that we need in a day, like truly a tiny fraction. We're not being taught the importance of minerals in our diet, all of that stuff. And the biggest thing, and the reason why this is so important, is we don't produce minerals at all by ourselves. We need to get them from food. So if we are not eating extremely intentionally to get a mineral rich, nutrient dense diet, we are going to fall majorly short on these minerals that we desperately need for our health. So that's why we have to be so intentional with minerals. So how to get minerals? Again, really, really, really simple. Eat real food. So an example that I love to talk about is ground beef. Beef has been demonized for so long, especially with all like the fat police and the fat gurus and, don't eat beef. It has saturated fat in it and all this stuff. And again, I would agree. I would not eat like low quality ground beef. It's not going to be nutrient dense. It's the fat content actually changes when the quality is a lot lower. But in 3 ounces of high quality ground beef, you can get 22 grams of protein, which is fantastic, 88% of your daily value of vitamin B12, 30% of your daily value of vitamin B3, 70% of your daily value of zinc, and then a lot more trace minerals like iron, selenium. There is some potassium in there. So eating for quality will, if you just eat a really nutrient dense diet, you don't have to worry about this stuff because it's loaded. God put this stuff in here. He put it in here.
Shocker.
And yeah, crazy that he knew what he was doing.
Crazy that he made us and then made the food that would nourish us. Like what?
Wild, right? And this is why we're so sick, because we've gotten so far from that just innate wisdom and just knowing that, because we've been so confused by these big companies and big corporations. So it's crazy. But when it comes to sources of minerals, fruits are fantastic sources of minerals. They are some of the foods that are highest in minerals like potassium, but some also contain copper and then important vitamins for skin health and just overall health like vitamin C and folate. And then, of course, meat, dairy, all of those things. Meat is a really important source of zinc and copper, especially organ meats. Organ meats are a really important source. Again, something we've totally lost. Every culture before us, and most cultures to this day, still incorporate organ meats. Us in the United States, these are just kind of like a totally lost art, which is really unfortunate because we are super low in a lot of the minerals that they provide. And then dairy. Dairy is such a good source of calcium, but it's also a great source of magnesium, potassium, selenium, phosphorus, so much more. It is a superfood, which is why I do not think you can have a nutrient-dense, well-rounded diet without dairy. Dairy is truly that important. So hopefully that helped. Did that answer some questions on minerals?
Cool. Absolutely. Yeah. One other thing that comes to mind, it kind of circles back to when you were talking about tap water and you're like, don't drink tap water alone, or like just don't drink water alone. What is that alternative? I've definitely heard of people talking about like things you can put in your water to like increase your mineral intake and make sure that like your water is actually hydrating you and you're not just like you said, like just flushing out your minerals and your nutrients.
Totally. Great question. So right here, I'm drinking my, I call this my hydration bomb. So a lot of people, when I used to do this, I'd wake up and just chug like a water bottle. And again, flushing my minerals. This is water, but it has lemon in it. It has acerola cherry powder, which is a great source of vitamin C. It has salt. And sometimes I'll put aloe juice in it, a little bit of aloe juice. Don't do that if you're pregnant. It can apparently cause, I just always say that because I don't want anyone that's pregnant to listen to this and go pour themselves a glass of aloe juice. But aloe juice is one of the richest sources of potassium. So if you're not pregnant, tap into that. But yeah, so this is what I drink. So I will always, and even if I'm just having a glass of water, I'll add a little pinch of salt to it. I will have herbal teas throughout the day. So like I love just to make a lemon and ginger tea, or with my meals, I'll have orange juice or coconut water or bone broth. I'll sometimes sip on a glass of bone broth. I also love milk. I know people are kind of like iffy on whether or not they like to just drink milk plain. You don't have to drink milk by itself to be healthy, but I always put it in my coffee. Again, dairy, like this is the thing, we can get minerals and hydration from food. You don't just have to be drinking plain water. Fruit is a great source. Meat is a great source. Dairy is a great source. We're trying to hydrate our body with minerals, and those things are all really mineral rich.
Amazing. That was so helpful. Okay. Can you shed some light on some of these like recipe trends that you see on Instagram and how important they actually are? I see these all the time, like adrenal cocktails. People talk about raw milk a lot, which I want you to touch on. I see the gelatin marshmallows everywhere. the bone broth hot chocolate. These are some examples of recipes that I see like every holistic girl that I follow on Instagram like talking about. And I've incorporated some into my days and stuff, but sometimes I think like, okay, how important are these things specifically really? And is this something that like everybody needs to do? Like, does everybody need to be drinking an adrenal cocktail every day? Or like, should we all be drinking bone broth hot chocolate or like the gelatin marshmallows? This was something Trey brought up because I made them at my house. And she was like, why are you making marshmallows? And I'm like, because they have beef gelatin in them. Like, it's good for you. It's good for your gut. Like, eat one. And then he's like, okay, like, how much is it actually in? Like, how much beef gelatin is actually in there? And at least the recipe I was using, it was like a tablespoon or two spread across like a bajillion marshmallows. And so he posed the question. He was like, are these marshmallows actually like healthy? Like, are people actually saying like you should be eating those? Or is it just like, a healthier alternative to a regular marshmallow? You know what I mean? Can you just like shed
Totally.
light on all of these trends?
Totally. Yes. I'm so happy you brought this up because this is where we see problems start. So, all of the things you mentioned, fantastic, wonderful. I can go through all of them. I recommend these to pretty much everyone, lots of benefits. The problem that I see though is, and again, no, I don't want anyone hearing this and thinking this is their own fault. So, this is why my business partner and I created a course. We literally have entire lessons on like oysters. We have a lesson on the raw carrot salad. We have a lesson on fruit and fruit sugar because we noticed that people were doing all of these trends, not really knowing why. And that's okay. Like, you don't have to fully understand everything about it. I think you should, because I think knowledge is power. But it's sometimes hard to get that information. So you just see this and you're like, oh, everyone's saying it's good. Okay, great. But where we see problems is someone will be like, oh, adrenal cocktails are great. I'll have 2 a day. And they're drinking them in between meals. And then they're having terrible blood sugar spikes and crashes because it's just fruit juice. I would never drink an adrenal cocktail without a meal. Like, I will drink it with my meal. But I'm not just going to drink it in the middle of the day because that's going to, like we talked about with the naked carbs, it's going to cause that spike and crash in blood sugar. And then you're going to feel bad. Also, sugar, like we talked about, is great, but sugar is sugar and you don't want to overdo it. And we see women jump into these trends head first and way overdo it. And that can lead to weight gain pretty quick. So adrenal cocktails are great. They're one of the best sources of potassium. They're mineral rich. They're wonderful, but I would do like 1 a day and I'd have it with a meal. I wouldn't have multiple a day on an empty stomach. So there's that one. Raw milk, wonderful. Highly recommend if you can source raw milk from a high quality rancher, I would absolutely do that. The reason I'm so passionate about this is because the way that milk is tested for successful pasteurization is the lack of enzymes. So everyone and their mom is lactose intolerant these days because they're all eating this low quality pasteurized dairy. Well, of course you're going to be lactose intolerant. There's no enzymes in there that you need to break it down. And again, God is so smart. He created the dairy with the enzymes that we need in order to digest it. So all of these sicknesses and problems we have stem from us going against the original design of this. And again, would I ever drink raw milk from the cows that are in dairy, the big dairy that are in terrible environments and very sick and filled with antibiotics? Absolutely not. I would only drink it from high quality animals. But raw milk can be great. Again, we see, the information gets out, raw milk is great. And then we see women going and drinking like 5 glasses a day. Not great, right? Everything should be within moderation. Too much of a good thing is always a bad thing. And we've seen that lead to weight gain. A couple other ones I can touch on too is like sourdough bread. Sourdough bread is fantastic. So is butter. I've had so many women post like in my membership or ask me a question. Hey, I'm eating pro-metabolic and I'm rapidly gaining weight. Okay, well, what are you eating? Well, my snack today was 4 pieces of sourdough bread and 4 tablespoons of butter. And you're just like,
that's why, girl.
Hold up. While these foods are good, this is not a free for all to just like pound these foods. You still need to be focusing on proteins. You still need to be focusing on minerals and I think the problem with these trends is you see people like picking and choosing. Like, ice cream is not bad for me. Okay, I'm going to have a pint before I go to bed. Yeah, that's not going to go well for you. Like, that's not good for you, and that's definitely going to lead to weight gain. So that's where those trends can become a problem. When
Mm.
it comes to the gelatin marshmallows or like the gelatin gummies and stuff. So Trey has a great question. I so first let me just explain. Gelatin and collagen are the same thing. So collagen is just hydrolyzed gelatin. It's been through the process of hydrolyzation, which is where it's processed with water to make it so it dissolves in your drink. If
Mm.
you were to put gelatin in your drink would turn into jello. It wouldn't it no one
Yeah.
wants to drink it. So collagen has basically been created as a way for us to get it in that dissolves in our drink. It's great. I love collagen. I drink it every day. So collagen and gelatin are the same thing. So would you get more from a whole scoop of gelatin in your coffee than a gelatin marshmallow? Yes. But what I love about things like the gelatin marshmallows are they are a way, way, way better alternative, of course, to any marshmallows.
Of
And you're
course.
still getting a benefit from it. And I think the big picture. So like I make the marshmallows a lot. And when I make them, I don't add sugar to my coffee because they're sweet. So I just put a marshmallow in my coffee instead. So then I'm still getting the sweetness and I'm also getting a little bit more gelatin. So I think the benefit is that it's just these little things that we add to our diet every day that make the difference. If we're doing the marshmallows and the raw carrot salad, when we're having raw milk and we're having an adrenal cocktail, over the course of the day, that's going to end up being a very nutrient rich day. Do you need gelatin marshmallows? No, you don't. They're fun. They're definitely like more of a dessert type thing, but they do still have a benefit. So hopefully that answers the question.
It absolutely does. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Good.
I didn't know collagen was the same as gelatin. So we're like if gelatin's so good, like as long as you're drinking collagen, like collagen powder in your drink, like you're getting that nutrient that you need.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, the most optimal is making like a homemade bone broth or a homemade like beef shanks or something like that that's a really gelatinous cut of meat that will have it in there. That's going to be the best. But I love the option of having things like collagen and the gelatin powders and stuff like that because a lot of us are busy and a lot of us have a lot of things going on. And I still think that you can always figure out time to make bone broth and things like that. But it's just that is what I would consider a nutritional supplement. Like it's something we can add to our diet that has a benefit, but our diet is not built around that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's true. Like we still have to make the best choices that we can with the lifestyle that we're in. And like not
Mm-hmm.
everybody has the ability to make fresh bone broth from scratch every single day.
Totally. And I think it's like also just look at the market of protein powder and stuff, right? I would tell someone to drink collagen every single day over any plant-based protein and 99% of whey proteins or soy proteins or anything else out there. So, um,
Mhm.
collagen is not a complete protein. That's something really important to understand. So you can't just like I had a girl one time, a client trying to hit increase her protein, and so she started to use like 6 scoops of collagen a day, which is again where I'm like, collagen is a supplement. There's benefits to it, but it's not a complete protein, meaning it doesn't contain all the amino acids that like meat or dairy would contain. So you're not getting everything you need from it. You cannot rely on collagen as a protein source. Does it count towards your daily protein intake? Yes, absolutely. But it should never be like the bulk or the foundation of that intake.
Yeah. So good to know. Okay. As we wrap up here, can you just share like why is this information so important? Like why is this
Yeah.
particular way of eating something you're passionate about? I think one thing we didn't necessarily touch on is like why metabolic? Like what does our metabolism really have to do with all of this? Like why are we choosing to like feed our metabolism? Why is that such a focus? And why is just this something that's so important?
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. So the reason I am so the metabolism, let's start there. The metabolism is what runs your entire body. So that's what earlier when we talked about like the thyroid and the metabolism. These are the two things that have to be functioning well in order for the rest of the processes in your body to work. So that's why, again, like Acne is not your problem. Weight gain is not your problem. Migraines are not your problem. The problem is that on like a cellular level, the way that your metabolism is functioning, and the metabolism is really just what determines the process and speed of how everything happens in your body and if it's going well or if it's not. If something is off there, everything else is going to be off. So that's why we put such a focus on your metabolic health. It determines everything about your body. And that's why you'll hear a lot of people say when they heal their metabolism, they lose weight. Like, you don't have to focus on the problem. You just have to focus on the root. And like, it's if you think about the metabolism, like it's the root system of a plant, right? If your plant has a problem and you're just treating the leaves, you're cutting the leaves, you're spraying the leaves, that is not healing the root system of what's going on. The roots are what absorb the nutrients, right? The roots are what determine the health of that plant. If you are completely ignoring the roots and the pot's all dry and there's no water and you're not fertilizing it, you're not going to have a healthy plant. And if you continue to treat the roots, the leaves, they might look a little bit better sometimes, but it's never going to heal the actual problem. So that is why we put such a focus on the metabolism. The metabolism is that root system of our body. And the reason I'm so passionate about this information is because this is the way that God designed us to eat and live. That's kind of like my tagline for my business, is helping women get back to the way God designed them to eat and live. Because the reason we are so sick as a culture is because we've never been further from that design. Again, not by our own. It's not our fault. We didn't do this. This is absolutely, in my opinion, Satan coming in and infiltrating this, right? So big pharma, big food, these big companies telling us what's good for us so that they make more money, but we get sicker. It's crazy. So we've never been further from what God designed for us. And I'm really passionate because I think we pray for miracles of healing from diseases of modern culture. And I think a lot of the time, the miracle's already right in front of us. Like, God already provided the miracle and we just need to tap back into it. It's the disconnection. So that's why I'm so passionate, is just helping women to understand that it is so much more simple than we could ever imagine. I mean, seriously, you can literally go, well, what did Jesus eat? Fish, meat, dairy, bread, olives, fruit. It's that simple. It seriously is. We've just gotten so confused and so lost and so disconnected from that over time.
Wow, thank you. This episode is literally a gold mine. Like, I'm so excited for people to listen to this. I know from my own experience, because I've been learning about this for years now and listening to other podcasts that have shared all this information, especially when you're starting out, which I feel like a lot of my followers and kind of like what I share is a lot of like the beginning steps of how to get into all this. Especially when you're starting out, it can be a little overwhelming to hear all of this information and be like, great, food's bad, seed oils are everywhere. Like, my tap water is killing me and turning my husband into a woman. Like, you know, like, so if someone could make one or two changes, maybe like just this week, like, where would you point them to? What would be like the one or two things that you would just say, like, focus on this first and then build up from there? Because we want to build up. We want to like continue to we want to like get here to a point to where we're like doing all these things, but it's okay to start small. So what would be your recommendation of like one or two things that people should start incorporating today?
Yes, love this question. So my first answer is going to be tap water. Filter your water. Seriously, if you never do anything that I ever say, but you just filter your water, amazing. Like, that will provide you so many benefits in the long run. I can also send you a link of the company of water filters that I recommend. The reason I love this company is because they filter out the widest variety of toxins and heavy metals, and they have so many entry points for price. So if you're just getting started and you don't want to spend a couple hundred on a water filter, you can get a pitcher filter for less than $100. And then there's also a fridge filter, a universal fridge filter. So if you drink water from your fridge, you just hook it up to the water line behind your fridge, lasts for a year. And then if you want something more advanced, you can get an under the sink filter. So it has multiple different price points, but filter your water, number one. And then number two, eat more high quality animal protein at home. So that kind of encompasses a bunch of things, but just more home cooking and more high quality animal protein at home. Because when you're eating at home, you have control over everything that goes into your food, and you don't need to cook with canola oil. You can cook with butter, you can cook with coconut oil, you can cook with tallow. That will make such a huge difference in just increasing that protein. So protein, cooking at home, and tap water are the three things I would say. If you just did that, that'd probably be the bulk of what you need to do. Of course, you can get so much further, and a lot of times you do need to dive in a lot more. I had to in order to heal. But those three things for everyone should just be like the basics.
Absolutely. Yeah. This was so good. Thank you for your generosity in coming on here and sharing all of your wisdom with our listeners. Like Annika said, she has a course where she dives even deeper into all this stuff. So we're definitely going to link that in the show notes, because I feel like if you're really interested in this and you want to take it to the next step, that's going to be a great resource to go to. Annika, where can people find you?
Yes. Well, thank you, first of all, so much for having me. I love talking about this with you, and I love sharing about this. So thank you for giving me the platform to do that. But you guys can find me on Instagram at I am Anika Nicole.
Amazing. Thanks, girl.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening in. If you've enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and on social media, and give me a 5-star rating on whatever podcast platform you're listening on. That helps me and the show out so much. Also, make sure to follow the podcast on Instagram at EverBePodcast. And if you want more content like this and you don't already follow me, you can also follow me on Instagram at mari.c.wagner. And may his praise ever be on our lips. God bless.